All right, what does a director in the theater actually do? Let's get this adjusted. Next time I'll shave. Sorry. Look like I'm, well, we won't go into that. What does a director in the theater actually do? In your book, they list 5 steps, which they call the script, working with the script, interpretation and concepts. Number 3 is auditions. Number 4 is rehearsals. And number 5 is tech rehearsals, dress rehearsals, and opening night. That's a pretty good breakdown. Some people might create those categories differently. Um, the first thing that a director does is agree or choose to do the play. Someone hires them or chooses them. If you're a high school student that's going to direct your friends in a high school play, no one hires you, but someone says you get to do the play. In my case, it's almost always someone saying, hey, we're doing cabaret in the summer, and we'd like to offer you the job of directing the play. And then I say, okay, let me get some details about it. What are my budgets? What's my fee? What are you going to pay me? Can we make that money higher, please? If I direct a play like at a college, like CRC, you don't get to negotiate about the pay, and I know that the actors will be part of the student group and will be taking a class, so I know a lot of details. So it's just a matter of, do I want to do that play, and do I have that time free to do that play? On Broadway or in professional theater at the highest levels, there's much higher level negotiations involving agents and people. And at community theater level, it's usually like a lot of times there's one person in the group who is the director, or 2 people in the group who are the director. So it's just a matter of making a schedule. The first thing you have to do is decide to do it. Once in a while, I direct a play that I have wanted to do the play, and I take it to a theater group and say, hey, I've been really wanting to direct this particular show. I've never directed Shakespeare's As You Like It, and I would like to do that. And do you have a slot? And what's the situation we can come up in order to do this play? But most of the time, it's theater companies coming to me or to any director and saying, would you want to do this show? Then I have to make a decision. I've directed plenty of plays that I didn't think were that good of a play for companies that I didn't think were that great, but they paid me. It's my job. Um, I also sometimes get to do things that I'm super excited about artistically. I try to make all of them, every single thing I do, artistically satisfying. I try to do a good job for the company I'm working for. I try to make them want to hire me again. But it's pretty variable. The amount of times where I've had a perfect situation where I got to hire the best professional actors to do a play I really loved in a theater I really loved, that's pretty small. Most of the time, you're working with what you have and still trying to do the best thing you can possibly do. Once you've agreed to do a play and agreed to the circumstances under which you're doing a play, step one, as your book says, is the script. I have directed a few things in my life where we didn't have a script, or we created a script that were sort of improvisatory in nature, or we took a basic story and expanded on it. But most of the time, you have a script. You are, in fact, paying money to someone for that script. The theater company that's doing the play pays royalties, unless it's an older script, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the playwriting section. So the first thing you do is get into the script very heavily. Do what is called script analysis. Read it a bunch of times, read things about it, break it down into units, break it down in the same way you would in an English class if you were studying a thing. Break out all the characters, break out all the scenes, make charts of all the different locations that are taking place, of the time periods, of when the actors enter and exit, all this kind of stuff. You can work for months sometimes on the script before you actually get to working with other people on the play. And sometimes you have a very short time. I've directed things where I got the script and we went in and they're like, okay, we're doing auditions in a week. Um, but you have to have a strong understanding of the script. Certainly no directors who were able to develop a strong understanding of the script without that much homework. And I've known directors who did so much homework that it would just boggle your mind. I'm sort of in the middle. I spend a lot of time with the script. I spend a lot of time working on it. Um, but also, I've done things where I read the script a couple times and went, I think I kind of know what we're going to do here. It, that is a area that varies a lot from director to director. But the directors I admire really understand the script, really understand what its strengths and weaknesses are, really understand the characters in the script. And it's a pretty essential part. You have to be a dramaturg, which if you haven't heard the word dramaturg before, we'll talk about that in a second. Second category that your book lists is, what's it called? Interpretation and concepts, where you take the information that you have gleaned from the script and from your research into past productions and from your research into the playwright and from talking to designers. Early on in the process, you start to work with designers and maybe a stage manager. Sometimes you get to choose those people, but most of the time they are also hired by the company. So you're working with them on artistic concepts, and you begin to develop a strategy for what this play is going to be beyond the script. I have absolutely directed scripts where I've told designers and the people involved, we're going to hew as closely as possible to this script. This is a great play. It's got great information in it. We do not need to change it. We need to make it come alive artistically on stage. I've also gone heavily into the world of concept and interpretation. I have done Shakespeare twice, set in the Wild West, set in the cartoonish kind of movie Wild West. I have done comedies where we emphasized the drama more. I have done a lot of Shakespeare where we set it somewhere, where we chose a location. I have done a rock and roll 12th night, 1960s rock and roll, English, The Who, the Rolling Stones kind of 12th night with an actual band on stage. 12th Night is a Shakespeare play, which I believe is very much about music. But I've also been acted in a 12th Night set in Russia 150 years ago. And I've also done plays set in the future. I did Hamlet with 7 actors. And not only Shakespeare, every play requires a decision about what are we going to do? Are we going to be historically accurate in our costuming and our settings? Are we going to make artistic statements? I've done historical plays where everybody wore really beautiful period accurate costumes and Converse Chuck Taylors to kind of emphasize the irreverence of the thing. I've done plays costumed in jeans and t-shirts. Rather than historical accuracy. You have to decide as the director, what is this play's meaning? What is this play's message? What is the power and the importance of this play to an audience and how best to deliver it? And being able to make those decisions is an important part of what the director does. Those decisions are frequently made in consultation with designers who may have this great idea for a set. It's going to be really cool, and it's going to have these things you can climb on and all this kind of stuff. And you, the director, have to decide, that sounds beautiful, but does it actually work? Does it actually make the play better? So interpretation and concept are important. Some people like, oh, I'm so sick of concepts, I just want to see the play. But really, every play has a concept, even if the concept is do the play as true to the script as we possibly can done. That's a concept. Your next category that your particular book says happens is auditions. Choosing who will be in the play is hugely important. Actors are hugely important. There's no getting around of it. Those of us in the theater backstage are frequently joking about how if we can only get rid of these actors, how easy this would be. But actors, and I'm an actor too, actors are hugely important. They are what the audience interacts with most closely. So choosing the right ones for the parts is essential, or the best ones. There's not one way to cast. There's many good choices of casting, but there's even more bad choices in casting or mediocre choices in casting. Once in a while, when you're directing a play, you are presented with the actors. Even more frequently, you will be told, "Hey, we'd like you to come in and direct this play." And we have an actor here who's going to play the lead. We are doing this because we want them to play Medea or Rose in Gypsy or something like that. And you'll say, okay, cool. But most of the time, you, the director, have a lot of say over casting. I have sat through thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of auditions, watching people try to prove, watching people do basically job interviews, trying to prove by their acting, their presentation of monologues, their readings from the script, that they should be in the play, and then making decisions about who you think, frequently in consultation with a stage manager, sometimes with the producer, but ultimately the director usually has the last say on who is in the play. The ability of a human being to see in the audition process, or lots of times now auditions are on tape, or not on tape, they're on sent to you on your phone, recorded YouTube videos like this audition. Your ability to see from that what the actor can do, even if they're not doing it in that thing, is a huge part of acting. Directors very frequently rely on actors they've worked with before because you've been through 6 weeks of rehearsals with them. You know what they can do. You've seen them in the final product. You've seen them on opening night deliver a great performance. You know they can bring it. That's such a relief. Casting actors that you've never met before, so scary. You never know what you're going to end up with. You could end up with a person who's not as good as they seem in the auditions. Some people are good auditioners and not that good of actors. They never get better. Or you could end up with a crazy person, a person who causes problems, a person who's difficult to work with. So it's a real gamble doing auditions. And the ability of the director and of all the people involved in casting to see, I think this person's going to be great, even though they're not typecast, even though they don't look exactly like we think the part is. In recent years, we have been much more willing to say, even if they're not ethnically what is written in the script, or even if there's two people playing brothers and they don't look alike because they come from different racial backgrounds, I think they're the best actors. That's been a big leap forward in theater, by the way, our willingness and ability to do that. So auditions are hugely important, and then once they're done, you're sort of stuck with them. You can fire actors. I've fired a few actors in my life, but usually you kind of, if they show up and do the right thing, you're kind of stuck with who you have, and you have to make the best of it. The number 4 category in your book is called rehearsals. This tends to be what people think of when they think of directing. Maybe for movies, a person sitting in one of those folding chairs with a megaphone saying, action! But for theater, a person sitting and watching the rehearsal process, watching people try to learn their lines, giving instructions, giving advice. Rehearsals can go on for 6 weeks or 2.5 weeks. About the shortest rehearsal periods now are 2.5 weeks. These are much shorter than when I started off. No one ever did much less than 4 weeks of rehearsal when I started off. And 2.5 week rehearsals or 4 week rehearsals would be pretty much full time, 32, 36 hours a week. In college, usually rehearsals last for a couple months because you're only rehearsing, maybe 15 hours a week or even 12 hours a week in the evenings or something after people's normal jobs. High school, the same kind of thing. Professional rehearsals are full-time, not quite 40 hours a week usually, but close to 40 hours a week. And people have really cut those down in length because you're paying everybody. When you're paying all the actors, then 2.5 weeks is a lot cheaper than 4.5 weeks. Rehearsing a play in 2.5 weeks is a nightmare. It's really, really hard unless it's a really easy play with a bunch of people who've done the play before and you've worked with them before. But the economics of theater are tough. We do not have enough money ever. So in rehearsal, you do what's called blocking, which is figuring out where exactly on the stage everybody's going to be, where they're going to enter, where they're going to sit, how they're going to confront each other, what their relationships, physical relationships are to each other. You do a lot of actor coaching where you say, try that again, but really feel it, really relate to that person, really try to make them feel what you want, or slow down, or I can't really understand you. Can you articulate that a little bit more, or whatever it is that you need to say. Refining, making changes, making interpretive changes. I just directed a play in the summer called Present Laughter by Noel Coward. We were going along pretty good, and then the lead broke his leg in a few places in a motorcycle accident. And it was a crazy experience because in this play, the lead is an actor in the 1930s who runs around and does all sorts of histrionics and stands on top of things and makes gestures. And this guy was really good at doing all those sort of things. And all of a sudden he was in a cast and on crutches. And we didn't know if he was going to be able to do it. He was pretty badly hurt, but he was able to do it on crutches. And we had to change everything, every bit of movement. And not only everything he did physically, but how people felt about him, how people talked about him. It was different talking. It actually worked kind of brilliantly, and I was very, very proud of it. But that's the kind of thing you do in rehearsal. The other big thing you do in rehearsal, from my point of view, is that you construct the team. I care a lot about how people feel about being in the play. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel valued. I want them to feel like they're cared about, but I don't want them to feel coddled. I don't want to just tell them what they want to hear. I sometimes have to tell them, I need something different from you. I need something better from you. This is where I really think of directing as coaching, as creating an environment, a positive environment, a group of people who are working together, a group of people who want to win. And by win, do the best possible version of this play. I care about this a lot. How you talk to people, how you communicate is a huge part of being a director's job. And as you know, there's lots of different ways to communicate, lots of different good ways to communicate, lots of different bad and unproductive ways to communicate. So how you get a group of human beings together and make the best possible artistic unit out of them, that's what you do in rehearsal, at least in my mind. And that's where I think a lot of people fall very, very, very short. It's easy to think, I'm an artist. I know what I want from this play. It's hard to get a bunch of people who are not you to do those things, or to discover, they can't do those things, but here's some really interesting other things that they can do. How can I maximize those? How can I use their skills and talents and the things that they feel positive and good about doing to create a work of art? It is all about making art. Your section on rehearsal in your book is pretty long and talks about all sorts of the things that directors do, and you should read all that carefully. I'll just mention one, stage pictures, where you kind of look at the stage and you see human beings and the set and the furniture and everything arranged in a way that tells a story. In the same way that when you look at a single frame from a movie, where everybody is and the expressions on the faces and the way they are dressed tells a story, even without the dialogue, the words that they're saying. These things are important. And there's so many of them that it has taken me, well, I've been a director for, sort of a director for, 35, 36 years. Every single play, I learn a lot of new things about how to direct. Every single time I watch a play, I see things that I know I will never do or that I will steal and do as a director. Every single time I work with a group of human beings, it's a different experience from the last group of human beings who are different human beings. And I'm always trying to figure out, how can I be the best version of myself? How can I be the best version of a director who can lead these particular people? So I'm pretty passionate about directing. I'm pretty passionate about the rehearsal process, about getting the most out of it. I am very far from perfect, very, very, very far from perfect, as are pretty much all humans. But it is the thing you are doing. You get a bunch of people together and you try to make a great play. And then the fifth category that your chapter mentions are tech rehearsals, dress rehearsals, and opening night. These are where you take all the hard work that you've done over the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Or I once saw a production at Louisiana State University of a play that had been rehearsed for 9 months. However long it is, you take all that work, you put it together. You put the lights and the sound and the actors on stage together. You do what are called tech rehearsals in order to collate all those elements, which can be frustrating, sort of sometimes 2 days, 2 16-hour days sometimes. You do dress rehearsals where you put on the costumes and the makeup and the hair and figure out how all those works. You give final notes, you make final changes. I am always giving notes and making changes right up until opening night. I want the best possible thing I can possibly get out of the deal. And then you have opening night. And there your show is, for everyone to see. And for them to come up to you and say, oh, that's awesome and that's great, or to kind of ignore you, or whatever it is. I love opening nights. I've been fortunate to have a lot of good opening nights in my life. One thing a lot of people don't know is that then the director is done. Lots of times when I'm directing a play, we have opening night, and the next morning I pack up my belongings from my borrowed housing that in someone's house that I used while I was directing the show, and I drive home and I start thinking about the next play I'm going to direct, or the next show I'm going to design, or the next class I'm going to teach. I direct a lot of plays up here in Nevada County where I'm still in the same town, so I'll pop in and see my friends once in a while in the play. But the director's job is done once the play opens. The stage manager takes over the running of the play, and it is responsible, the stage manager and the cast and the crew, to maintain the artistic vision of the director. In educational theater, college, production of Rent you just saw, the director's still around because they are also the teacher of that class. So they may still have things to say and they may still be involved and they may be there almost every night. But traditionally in theater, the director's job is done on opening night. Once in a while, the day after opening night, if there's some sort of problems opening night that needs to be fixed. And a lot of people are surprised by that. A lot of kids in college or high school are surprised by that because their teacher or their professor has always been around the whole time. Even people that I direct still today are kind of surprised that the director's not hanging around. I'll be like, all right, that's a great job. I'll see you guys next show. And they're like, what? What's happening? But that's kind of how it works. I want to say one final thing. Your chapter mentions a dramaturg. Read that chapter. Dramaturg is something that a lot of people have lots of different views on. It's basically just a person who studies things for the play, studies the script, does research on texts, studies Shakespeare if you're doing a Shakespeare play, studies. We just recently at CRC did a version of a Greek play, Electra, called Electricidad, which was set in the barrio in like East LA. So in that case, a dramaturg would be responsible not only for studying the Electra, the Greek play from 2,000 years ago, but also what actually goes on in the barrio in East LA. Let's talk about the Spanish language. Let's talk about the culture. Let's talk about the traditions. So I love, but the dramaturg doesn't then go to the actors and tell them. The dramaturg frequently tells this bits of information to the designers and the director, who can then use that. Um, I love being a dramaturg. I've only got to do it really a few times seriously, but to be able to do that fun research and then not have to do all the work, pretty cool. Or sometimes dramaturgs do a bunch of stuff and people don't use them at all, so not cool at all. And most shows don't really have a dramaturg. The main point I wanted to make is the director is usually their own dramaturg. They do the research. They do the looking into various things. Okay, I've talked about a director. I am a director. Read the chapter again. See if you can find the places where we differ and where we are the same. And once again, really thank you for watching these and listening to what I have to say.